Today's presentation is about React Router version 4, and it will be an introduction into this subject. So, what is React Router? And I split the definition in 3 bullet points to make sure we understand it better. So React Router is a routing library, which for me it was a bit confusing because I didn't know what library meant. So I presented its definition at the bottom of the page. A library is a set of code that was previously written, and you can make use of it in your own code legally, as it was written to be used by others. So basically what React Router is a piece of code that will help us create the routing in our app. So the next step, React Router is built on top of React. Do we have it installed in our app so far? No. When we installed our React in our app, do we have it? No, because it's built on top of React. So this means we will have to install it. And the third bullet point, it's kind of self-explanatory. It is used to help you navigate to the different pages of the application. So this will help you navigate through your internal links. It has nothing to do with the external links. So if you are on the home page, you can go to your About page or your Contact page, and so. And let's see, installation. What, how, and where? React Router library comprises of 3 packages: React Router, React Router DOM, and React Router Native. Which one do we need? And why? Okay, we will find out. So let's see the others too. What are they about? React Router is the core package for the router. React Router DOM is used when you are building for the web. Are we building for the web, or are we creating a mobile app? Yeah. We're building for the web. We will build for the app, for the web. Okay, and React Router Native is used if you're on a mobile app development environment. So far, so good? Questions? Okay, and this is the syntax for the installation and for the import. We will have to install React Router DOM in our terminal via npm. And after this, we have to import it in the app.js as follows. No. But before we go to the Visual Studio, we have a graphic representation on how things are going to look like. Because the router has to be the root of your application, and it only expects to receive a single child element. So first of all, we will have our app.js component, the parent component, which will contain the React Router component. See, this is a component as well, which will be a child for the app component. And then the React Router will have only one root element, which can be a div. Okay, and now that we all seen this, we can go into our Visual Studio, and what do we have to do?
Before we install React Router DOM, what do we have to do?
With the terminal.
npm?
No.
Open and use.
Before we install anything in our terminal, what do we have to do?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that?
Control-C?
Exactly, control. It's control. Now we stopped
We stopped the application, so now we are ready to install the React Router DOM. I'll just copy the command, so I don't need to write it again.
Is it possible to speak louder?
Just a second. Sorry. Okay, control. See? Okay, and now let's just copy paste it into our terminal and install it.
Okay, now we are done with the installation. You can check if you have the package on the package.json file. Can you see React Router DOM? Is there?
So it has been installed in our dependencies. Everything okay so far. Now the next step that we have to do. What's the next step?
Import it.
Exactly. So now let's go to our slides and copy. So as you can see here, we imported browser router as router. What we did here, we created an alias for the browser router. So instead of using browser router in our app, we will use simply router. It's shorter and it's descriptive. And we import it from React Router DOM.
I think we have a problem with the quotes.
Yes, and we have a problem.
Because
we
we
copied
did copy paste.
from
Okay, now it's good. And it's underlined because we are not using it yet, the router. To go to the components, first we need to create them so we can navigate through them.
Yes, but before that, we have, if we go to our graphic representation, we see that we have to add the router component into our app.js. Meaning, we will have to add it here. And then add the root element into our router component.
Okay, now we fix the underlining.
Now it's declared and used. And let's go now and create our components. We want to create an app with 3 pages, with the home page, about page, and the contact page.
Yes, we created about component in advance, so you can see we import React from React again, and this is a stateless component. That's why it's like a variable assigned to a function, and it's returning what we want to see on about page. We need to create more components so we can see the difference. I'll just copy and paste this to another component, which is going to be contact.
And then we have to change the names.
This is going to be our contact component, and we want to see the details of the contact page. Default. And we export it as well.
Okay, something.
Yes, I'm missing one. Yeah. So now we can go back to the app.js file and start creating the routes to go to the pages.
But before we add our routes into our Visual Studio Code, let's go back and see what does React Router do. So it says that React Router keeps your UI in sync with the URL, basically. So React Router keeps in sync the content of your components with the URL that you will find in the browser tag here. And how does it do that? It expects some path props. A path prop, which is a string that describes the path name that the route matches. But to make sure we understand this clearly, let's take a look on its syntax. So it says the route component accepts a path prop, which is this one, which is a string, see the quotes, that describes the path name. So this is.
We are going to show the difference between the components and the paths, because slash is the default path to go to the home page, to your main app.js.
Yes, and this component renders a page. But it will render the page if the current location URL, which is this one, matches the path prop specified in it, which is this one. When the path does not match, the route will not render anything. So for example, our home component will be rendered when this path will match this one. And
We need to create the home component.
if we notice, we have localhost column 3000, but we don't have any slash, because the slash, it's the same. We didn't start the project.
Yeah, we
It's
need to start the application.
Star. Sorry.
It's loading.
Slowly. No. So yeah, if we can see, if we add a slash, it's the same as if it's not there. And another graphic representation on how our routes will look like. So if we go again and see the app.js component that contains our router, that will contain a single root element with the routes that will contain our components.
Yeah, let's show it so we can understand better.
Now we go into our Visual Studio and start adding our routes.
So in our case, the child element is our div with the class name app, and inside we will create the routes to navigate to the about and the contact page. So our path to go to the about.js file, which path should I use? Should I type slash what?
Slash what? You want to go to about page.
Slash about, exactly. And then we want to see component about. But why do you think it's underlined, the route? And about as well. Exactly. And the route we imported as a browser root router.
Here.
Okay, we fixed this, and about we have to create it as any other component. Import about from about. Okay. So now we should see this is about page on our app.
So now if you change the URL with the about page,
Here you go, you have the about page.
but now let's create the route for the home page as well.
Yes, we first need to create the component for home page.
No, we don't have. So we do.
Yes, if you want to go to
Yeah.
the home.
Yes, she's right. Sorry.
The way of creating a stateless component is always the same, so that's why we copy and paste it. This will be home, home, and we export it. So we can import it in our app.js file. It's underlined because we are not using it yet. We are going to create another route. So route with a path. Can you tell me what would be the path for the home page?
Slash.
Just slash, exactly. And we want to see which component.
What
Home.
component do you want to see?
So let's see what we did so far. Oops, we see both of them. Why do you think we see this is the home and this is the about page? We want to see only one of them.
But let's see what happens if we go on our home page. So on our home page, we have the
We have the content of the home page.
exactly. But if we go on the about page, about page, we can also see the content of the home page.
This means that it's rendering both components.
And this happens because the slash path will always render the content of our home page. And in the path for the about page, we also have the slash, which means render the home page and then render the content for the about page. And there is a fix for this problem.
If you want to go exactly to this path, there is a prop called exact, which, oops, let's remove this space. So now when we are at the slash, we will go only to the home page, and when we are at about, we see only this is the about page.
Let's see if this works. Yes. So what this exact prop does, it says render the component of the home page only if this path matches the path into our URL. So now the slash, simple slash means only render the content of the home page. Let's create another route for our contact component.
You want to go to contact. And again, we want to render the contact component. Okay, we need to import it again as every any other component. And slash.
There's a mistake here.
Oh yes, typo. No.
We will get it. We will get it. Okay.
Let's see the content of a contact. Here you go. You see only one component, not all of them. So in this case, we want to go back to the home page. How do you think we can go back to the home page?
In this situation, how do we go back to the home page?
Add another link that routes back to the
We
home
don't
page.
have the link yet. So in this situation, how do we go back to the home page?
Let's go back.
Exactly. So this is definitely something that we don't want to do. So React router has another component, which is the link component. That replaces the default anchor tag, href, and it accepts a to-prop that points to the URL location we want to go to. And this is the syntax. Instead of a, we have link. Instead of href, we have to and the path, the text, and this is how we import it. So let's go into our components and create some buttons that will take us either to the home page or the contact page.
So we want to go to the home page. We need to add some text so we have somewhere to click. Take me back to the home page.
It's a very long text for a button, but
That's fine.
we'll do it.
And
It's
we
user
have to import the link so we can use it. From the React router DOM, because link comes with the router. So let's see what we did. If we go to the About page, we have the hyperlink to go back to the home page.
And if we click it, it will take
Here
us
you go.
to
You have the home page.
But just to make things a little bit prettier, it won't take long. I just added a class name for
About
the button. We should
should
definitely put a
a button on the
into-
home page here.
Exactly. So now it will show. It will show like this, and if we click on it, we will go on the About page.
Yeah, let's add a button on the home page.
Let's do this on our home page as well, and duplicate it. So we are on the home page. We need a button for take me to the About page, and
Then take the contact. No, you need only two.
we are on the home page. Contact.
You don't need this one because you are on the home page.
Yeah. Like this. Okay, and now what do we have to do now? We have the component link, but it's still underlined. Why is it underlined?
Because you haven't imported it.
Let's import it then. Does anyone know the difference between link to and href? Why are we using link? We're not using
You said,
anchor tag.
according to you, you said it's a React instead of the HTML, which is
Yes, but there is difference because you can use anchor tag, but why we prefer to use the link? Anyone
I don't know
else?
exactly, but I think it's something to do with how the page refreshes. So when you use just normal anchor tag, it will refresh the whole page. When
Exactly,
you use link, I think
yeah.
it learns to change somewhere.
Yes, exactly. With the link, you are navigating through the internal components. It's like an internal link. You don't request to the server to load the whole page. When you're at the home page, when you click to go to the about page, you're calling only the component. You're not calling again to render the whole application.
So what am I doing here is I'm just creating the buttons for the other page. It's exactly what we did for the home page. So
Contact.
we are on about. So we can browse easier through our website. Report. From Okay, let's see how our app looks like now. So we have a button for the About page that takes us to the About page. We have only one for on the contact page, and if we want to go to the contact page again, so we have buttons that takes us back to the other pages.
And let's recap what we did from the beginning. To enable yourself to use the router, first you need to install it and import it in your app.js, and then you add your router tags and make sure that you have there is only one child element, and import the router component and add it in your router for each page in the application. You use the exact prop so all your paths will match exactly the URL location, and use the link component instead of anchor tag to create your clickable links. Do you have any questions?
Yeah?
Didn't mention anything about the switch.
Yes, because this is just the introduction. If we would have went too deep into React Router, it would have been a too long presentation.
Okay, so, does it matter if you have the browser router as a parent component to the app or the other way around?
No, it doesn't matter. As long as you have only one child element in the router, it's fine. You can have.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried to just wondering if there's any side effects because I've got mine within my app, so I'll check.
No, as long as it's only one, it doesn't matter if it's div or it's something else.
And if there's two,
Then it will show an error.
The two, you need to wrap them into a div or something else.
The components accept only one root element, which can be a div, a switch.
There's a classic thing in React. If you notice, when you create a React component, you are forced to have a single root element, right? A single div wrapping everything. If you have two divs at the same root level, React will comply that. I have a couple of notes on top of your presentation, which was really good, by the way. So, talking about advanced features, one of the things that we'll learn later on in the bootcamp is how to capture URL changes. Does anyone know why it will be any interesting to detect when the user navigates on URLs?
So when you make your Bulgaria training, you know when he replies to chest.
Good attempt, but not really. I have different ways to spy you.
Yeah. It's good to know when someone's gone, so you can track how many people
Exactly.
go into the page.
Exactly. One of the tasks you got on the backlog is about Google Analytics. So with Google Analytics, literally 4 lines of code, you can send an event to Google every time the user changes the URL. Why? Because you want to see which is the most popular view that the users are consuming, right? How many users land on /about? How many users land on /contact? Where do they come from? How long do they stay, right? That's why it will be very useful to intercept the URL change to trigger action.
Where does that information go? Is it still in the Google cloud?
Correct. Correct. That information goes to Google. The setup is very easy.
And is that your Google account?
It's your Google account.
Okay.
This is private.
Then
Yes,
you
you
can
are
pull it
Google.
from the cloud if you want to see it.
Sorry?
Then you can pull it from the cloud if you want to see the data and analyze it.
So you need to go to analytics.google.com to check all the details. I'm sure you can export the data to a PDF to CSV. In reality, the Google hosts the data, right? I know some companies, they don't trust Google because of that there are some private alternatives to Google Analytics. But to me, as a starting point, that's the best tool.
And it's free.
It's
What about
free.
for the big companies, big websites that have loads of data going in?
That's
It's
fine,
free.
that's fine. And then it's free, you don't pay in money, you pay in data, right? If your platform has millions of users, you're giving to Google huge information,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's the deal with you and Google, as usual. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, because the routing wall this is quite simple, it's a really good starting point. Obviously, as you suggested, it could become more complicated. So please bear in mind that if you go to Google, if you don't know how to do something, if you want to investigate a bit, if you want to add new functionalities, bear in mind that unfortunately, React Router DOM changes a lot from one version to the next one. So please make sure that if you search on Google something about React Router DOM, you search on the version you are using at the moment, which is V4. Right? On V3, the API is different. On V2, the API is different. Right? Sometimes you may find something on Stack Overflow which looks promising, but it doesn't work because it's using a different version of React Router. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.